welcome to the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast, where two Southerners come to terms with their liberal snowflake tendencies. We're your hosts. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jason. And we are here with episode number 14 of the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast. We are calling this one Bible Belt Holding Up My Pants, which is a funny name for an episode, I have to say.
I think it's great.
This topic was actually recommended to us. A while back, Amanda did a call out.
I did. I went to our social medias and I said, hey, listeners, give us some ideas or things you would like to hear us talk about. And one of our listeners named Christy, a.k.a. Bun, suggested that we talk about evangelical Southern Christian churches.
Ooh.
And all the things that go along with them.
I think that's a good idea for a topic. I actually have some experience with that in my life.
Oh, yeah?
I can recall two specific instances of being at evangelical churches in my young years that stick out. When I was about 13 years old, I got my first little girlfriend, and her parents and her family were very religious. And I didn't really know that. Her friends were the one who told me that she liked me, because that's how it works back then.
Right, that's how kids communicate. When you like a boy when you're 13, you get your friends to tell him.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it went down. So I didn't really know that much. So I talked to her on the phone, and her parents wanted me to go to their church if I was going to talk to her on the phone. So I told my parents, and they were like, okay, well, we'll take you. So they take me to a evangelical church. I don't really even remember the name of it, but my parents definitely knew that it was an evangelical church, I think, but I didn't. And
you probably didn't even know what evangelical was.
I don't think I did.
When you were 13.
And I think they were just like, well, he'll figure it out on his own.
Good luck, kid.
Because I'd been to a Methodist church before that, but I kind of quit going. My parents weren't super religious, so I didn't really know what I was in for. And I remember getting there, and it seemed like a normal church at first. I was wearing my nice clothes. Felt pretty good, and I'm there. My little girlfriend's there. She's in a dress looking cute. And then they started preaching, and the preaching got really loud and yelly very quickly, as the evangelicals are wont to do. And he started speaking in tongues, and the women started waving their hands and speaking in tongues, and people laying on the ground, and these old ladies were wearing their high heels, but they're like running down the aisles and jumping up on the pews, and I'm freaked out because I keep thinking they're gonna fall and like break a hip.
Yeah, and you're like, what is happening?
Yes, I'm just wide-eyed, freaked out, because I've never seen anything like this. I never really even heard of anything like this.
Yeah.
They were performing it big time, and I was so scared that I tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go, and I made it through the hour-long church service, and her parents were all happy and wanted to congratulate me and ask me if I gave my heart to Jesus, and I was just like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta go. I was scared.
Yeah. Well, 13, you have no point of reference. Your
No.
experience had been, boring normal church where you fall asleep halfway through. And
Right.
you're like, is it time for lunch yet?
Yes.
And this was not what you had expected, and you didn't even know what to expect.
To me, church was a guy droning on like this, and I just sort of counted ceiling tiles.
Yeah.
That's what I thought church was.
Right, and every 10 or 15 minutes you'd stand up and sing a hymn.
And I'd never, so I was freaked out, and I since didn't go to church. I was afraid of church for a long time. I didn't go.
Did you continue to see that girl?
No, that ended that.
You're like, well, it's been fun. I gotta go.
Yeah, that ended that. And then the next time I went to a church, I was 19, 20, somewhere around there. And I had a different girlfriend, obviously, and her parents were very religious. When I first met them, they were an older couple. When I first met them, her grandmother was very eager to show me this picture that she had of her in Jerusalem. But she told me that she was also embarrassed because she was wearing pants in the photograph. And the reason she was wearing pants is because in Jerusalem, there's streets are small, and she wanted to go to see Bethlehem to see where baby Jesus was born. But she had to ride a motorcycle, and in her entire life up until that point, she'd only ever worn skirts.
Yeah, had only ever worn skirts and only ever been seen in skirts. So here she's showing you this photo that she's both proud of because she's in Bethlehem or Jerusalem, but also super embarrassed because she's
got on pants,
wearing pants
for the first time in her life at 60, which that just blew my mind at the time. I couldn't even understand it. I remember asking my girlfriend, she's like, yeah, Meemaw doesn't wear pants.
And did you go to that church or their church as well?
I did, and that was the second experience I had. It was they had started their own church. They'd gotten married when they were 14. It was a very evangelical church. I went there because their gym had burned down and they were building a new gym or whatever, and they were having a big meal. And I thought, okay, well, free food or whatever. And I think I smoked a bunch of pot before just because I thought, I guess that would make it better. It didn't. It made it worse. Well,
you remembered your 13-year-old experience and you were like, maybe I should be not entirely sober for this.
I think, and then I remember there was like going to be a bunch of food. So I was like, maybe if I smoke enough pot, like it won't be so bad. But it made it worse because I was very freaked out because the same exact thing happened. I mean, he started speaking in tongues, people running around yelling. And it was like I had flashbacks to the last
you're like
time.
PTSD triggered.
This time, luckily, I had a car. Like I was an adult.
You're like, well, gotta go.
As soon as it was over, I bailed out, and I was like, sorry, I'm never going back to your grandparents' church. That was freaky.
Yeah.
So those are the two experiences I've had with being in an evangelical church and seeing it. And both times it really freaked me out because the behavior wasn't something I was equipped to see.
And you, especially when you were 13, you weren't warned.
Yeah.
There was no heads up.
Yeah, that people are going to be yelling and like... I imagine if you grew up with it as a kid, it's not weird.
Sure, it was normalized for the regular attendees, but if you're an outsider and this is your first exposure and no one warned you, mom, dad.
Yeah, thanks, mom and dad. Yeah. I know y'all had to have known.
Yeah, you know they knew.
Yeah. You just dropped me off like he'll figure it out on his own.
Good luck, kid.
Maybe he'll be into it. I don't know. But I find it interesting because it made me start thinking about like tradition as a whole and like what parts of tradition are good and what parts of tradition are bad and what's harmful and what isn't. I did a little research into that. I did a little digging if you want to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I was thinking about tradition as a whole, I was thinking about like, well, first of all, what does tradition mean? Like, where does the word come from? And it's Latin. It's from the same word as trade, tradire. And it literally means to transmit or hand over for safekeeping. It's to give something to someone. But Wikipedia did say that it should be differentiated from customs, conventions, laws, norms, routines, and rules, and other similar concepts. So tradition is more the thing that doesn't change, and rules and convention and laws and norms are the practices that you do in the tradition. And I think a lot of times we conflate those things.
For sure.
I know that I tend to, and I know that a lot of people probably do as well. And that might be one of the problems with talking about tradition. We'll be speaking about a custom or a rule, and we'll refer to that as tradition, but that's not the tradition. The tradition is the passing on of a lifestyle, of a way of looking at the world, of social concepts.
Right. Tradition is like the bigger picture concept, and then the acts or the practices or the laws are the smaller things within that umbrella.
So when we're talking about Southern evangelicals, we're talking about the tradition of Southern evangelicals and then some of their stranger customs, practices, rules, norms. And those all can change. And I think sometimes it's good for society to change our customs and our rules and our laws even. But that doesn't mean we're losing the tradition. And I think a lot of times we mix those things up. And that's kind of one of the things that thinking about this topic made me realize.
Yeah, I think that's really smart.
Well, thank you. I just sort of, looked stuff up, but you're welcome. So if you're thinking about it in that sort of framework, the tradition of Southern evangelical churches isn't bad, but some of the customs and practices that they do could maybe potentially be harmful. I think maybe some of the practices like handling snakes or drinking poison might be potentially harmful.
Potentially deadly.
And maybe need to be customs and practices that could get removed from the Southern evangelical tradition and still keep the tradition is the idea, to make it less harmful.
Well, I have a suggestion.
Oh, yeah?
Let's talk about snake handling.
Let's talk about snake handling. That sounds a little perverted, but I like it.
A little bit. Euphemism?
No.
No, reality.
Yes.
So the acts of snake handling and of drinking strychnine, which, by the way, strychnine is a poison.
Yeah, very poisonous.
Dates back to the turn of the 20th century in a few select evangelical churches.
Okay, so around 1900?
Yeah. Then there's a little bit of discrepancy about when it actually began, but around that time.
Okay. Well, it seems like it would be older than that, but...
You would think so, and I thought it was too, but it's not. In the scheme of things, it's actually pretty recent.
So I guess we're evolving to be dumber.
One could say that for
One
sure.
could make that argument.
Yeah. Most of these congregations have been in or around the Appalachian regions of Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
However, there have been and still are churches practicing these traditions in all of the southeastern states.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And even some in Canada.
Whoa.
Yeah. I was like,
I wonder
really?
if I guess they would be holding different kinds of snakes in Canada. They do northern rattlers.
I guess. I don't know. Anyway, most people attribute the practice of handling snakes and drinking poison to a man named George Hensley, who was a clergyman in the early 1900s in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
The Nuge. Yeah.
However, many religious historians believe the practices actually started in Virginia with a woman named Nancy Kleinig, who handled serpents during revivals attended by coal miners.
See, that when I tend to think of it, snake handling, my brain goes to West Virginia. That's just me, though.
Well, this was Virginia, not West
Virginia.
Well,
close enough.
They're neighbors. It's like whatever.
It is whatever.
So the basic premise or rationale for snake handling or for drinking poison comes from the literal interpretation of two specific books of the Bible. And 3 verses. One's from the Gospel of Mark. And one's from the Gospel of Luke. Gospel of Mark. So it's Mark 17, verse 17, 18. It says, "And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall do no harm to them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." So that was Mark.
That explains,
Yeah. And then in Luke, it says, "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you."
Well, so you could walk on them too, in theory, I guess.
Apparently, and also some scorpions.
Yeah.
But we don't have scorpions.
But then there's a snake on the flag that says, "Don't tread on me." I wonder if that's tied together.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know. Anyway, members of snake handling churches believe that those who have the Holy Spirit within them can handle venomous snakes and drink poison without being harmed. It's often viewed as a testament or a demonstration of one's faith.
Yeah.
And if a person dies in the process, it's considered to be God's will.
Oh, yeah, you know.
And it was simply that person's time to die.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a stretch.
A bit. And the interesting thing is that very few of them ever actually seek medical treatment if they are, in fact, bitten or they drink poison and things go bad.
Because it kind of says that God will take care of it. It's cool. It's like the Christian Scientist. Like, God says, like, he got it. So you don't got to worry about it.
And that if you have God or the Holy Spirit within you, you'll be protected.
Well, the interesting thing about that is if it doesn't work, you're dead. So either way, it's like whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You'll be dead.
Yeah. So, I mean, they got it kind of a nice win-win there.
The specific groups who have or still do practice snake handling are typically part of what's called the holiness movement.
Yeah.
This includes groups like Pentecostals and Charismatics. Charismatics are the folks that believe in miracles.
Yeah.
Those people. There are countless denominations among and within these groups. But under the umbrella of the holiness movement, these groups tend to believe the moral aspects of the law of God are pertinent for today. And so they expect followers to obey certain behavioral rules, such as no drinking, no smoking, no drug use, gambling, or entertainment like going to see a secular movie.
Right.
Or like you mentioned, the lady not wearing pants.
Right. Wearing pants.
They dictate like your clothing and stuff.
Because if you got to be like humble or whatever, because the Bible has a lot to say about women not doing stuff.
Absolutely. It loves to talk about that.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, this is not all evangelicals or all Pentecostals or charismatics.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
They don't all engage in snake handling or drinking poison. It's just a small select few.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I imagine there's some legal issues.
There are. We'll get to that in just a minute. But anyway, so if for some bizarre reason, though, you were looking for a church that likes to handle snakes, you're going to want to start by approaching these types of organizations and churches. You're not going to find this down the street at the Catholic Church.
I wouldn't think so. And I would think you would have to go to maybe those tent revivals and places like that, and then meet the kind of people who then go to other smaller gatherings where things like that happen.
Right.
I would imagine it's...
Yes, you have to basically do some digging to find these churches. Because it's not like they advertise it.
Well, generally when people are doing something that's legally questionable, you got to like prove yourself to get in.
And yeah, I mean, you're not going to be driving down the bypass and see a billboard that says,
come hang out and
snake
handle
handling
some
church down on the left.
Right.
No, that's not how it works.
Right.
You have to kind of weasel your way in if you're really trying to find a church that does this.
If you were trying to do it from a secular way, if you really believed it, I think it probably wouldn't be that hard to find your way in.
Yeah, but again, you're not just going to like roll up and view it. You're going to have to get involved.
Yeah.
Also, as you mentioned, the legal issues, snake handling, venomous snake handling is illegal in all Appalachian states except for West Virginia.
So it's just cool there.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually protected in their constitution.
Yeah, the freedom of religion.
But it goes even further. It involves like actual practices.
See, that's weird to me because it's illegal to kill yourself, but it's not illegal to do something so stupid that you might kill yourself.
Yeah. Well, West Virginia's like, it's all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeehaw. Anyway, there have been numerous arrests and legal cases involving church-based snake handling through the years. And in 1941, the practice was classified as a felony in the state of Georgia after a 7-year-old was bitten by a rattlesnake during one of these services and died. But, so in Georgia, they made it a felony and they made the punishment death if you were convicted.
Wow, that's extreme.
But, yeah, exactly. So what happened was juries failed to ever convict anyone because they felt that the punishment was too extreme.
Yeah, it is.
So every time one of these people would get arrested for snake handling,
they'd get away?
They would, it'd get overturned and they'd get out. So in 1968, Georgia actually repealed that law and lessened the punishment, which is probably going to be similar to what the punishment is in Kentucky, for example, which is like a misdemeanor charge and like a $50 fine.
Yeah, not death. That's a little ridiculous.
Right. Speaking of legal, so one case in particular hits really close to home for us.
Okay.
The Snowflakes.
Awesome.
And where we live. So in 1985, a man named Charles Prince was arrested for handling poisonous snakes during a church service after Haywood County Sheriff's deputies were called to a large open-air revival being held in the tiny mill town of Canton, North Carolina. Prince was a bait shop owner and a freelance holiness movement pastor with a penchant for snake handling and strychnine drinking. Prince had been holding services all summer long, going back and forth between Morristown, Tennessee and Canton, North Carolina.
All right.
Haywood County Sheriff Jack Arrington got wind of these services and warned Prince repeatedly that he was going to be arrested if he kept it up. He's like, man, you got to stop this. It's nuts.
Something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't want people getting hurt. But think about it. This man handled snakes like it was his job.
He's not reasonable.
I read about him. Like, I looked more into him as a person. He had grown up in this whole movement. He was a pastor. He 100% believed that he had the Holy Spirit within him, and he was, touched by God and was not going to be stopped.
Wow.
So threats from a sheriff were not going to slow him down. So on August 4th of 1985, the Haywood County Sheriff and his deputies arrived at one of Prince's services and demanded he stop the service and allow them to confiscate the snakes because they were illegal. You couldn't possess venomous snakes in the state. It was illegal. Did not go well.
Okay.
Did not go well. Prince resisted and wouldn't even drop the snake that he was holding when they arrived. There's a photo. Thankfully, the newspaper was there when it all went down. There's a photo of him being grabbed by sheriff's deputies. He's holding a rattlesnake in his hand, looking at it, and the sheriff's deputies are like trying to grab him, trying not to touch the snake. It's a really good like black and white, old school picture. So anyway, a skirmish ensued, and during this, all the other people in attendance started pulling out their own snakes.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there were snakes coming out of boxes.
Oh, man.
There were snakes coming out from people's chairs in the tent.
Oh,
like,
no.
Snakes were just being presented all over this place as these people felt that they were being, infringed upon and under attack. So they just
unleash their snakes.
Yeah, so everybody's just taking out their snakes. The sheriff is like, stop it.
That's probably not going to end well.
It didn't. In the process of trying to arrest Mr. Prince, Sheriff Arrington wound up getting bit by a rattlesnake.
Wow.
Yeah. Finally, Prince was taken to jail.
The sheriff got bit.
Yeah, he got bit, and the sheriff was taken to the hospital.
Oh.
Where he spent a week in the ICU.
Oh.
Yeah,
man, and I bet it hurt so bad.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. Meanwhile, Prince was released on a $700 bond and had a court appearance scheduled for August 26th. However, Prince never made it to that court appearance.
Oh.
Because shortly thereafter, he wound up getting bit by a snake during a service.
Oh, yeah.
And
you don't say.
Died.
Oh.
So he actually died, I think, like 4 or 5 days before his court date.
He almost killed a cop and then killed himself with a snake.
Right.
Wow.
And it probably didn't help matters that right after he was bitten by that snake, he drank strychnine. So he got bitten a few times.
And then drank poison.
And then drank poison. And he died a very, very painful, gruesome death.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What a story.
Yeah, and that's just like right down the road from us.
Yeah, that's relatively close.
So these churches, the ones that engage in this activity, it's believed that there's roughly about 125 congregations in the U.S. that still practice snake handling or strychnine drinking. But it should be noted that this number is really just an estimated guess because the practice is for the most part illegal and certainly socially shunned because there are other very religious folks and congregations that would be like, no way.
Yeah.
We don't want any part of that.
Right. I would think most of them.
And so it's generally done in secret.
Yeah, I think you probably have a lot of small family churches and stuff that
tends to be the case. A lot of these congregations tend to be like families. It's extended families. It's cousins and sisters and brothers and uncles and stuff.
From one of the things I was reading about this is people in North Carolina who want to buy poisonous snakes have to go to South Carolina to buy them because it is legal to sell poisonous snakes in South Carolina.
Right. Yeah, South Carolina.
Yeah.
They got the fireworks. North Carolina folks go there for fireworks and for snakes, I guess.
Anything that might take your hand off.
Yeah, anything that might remove fingers.
Yeah, I think South Carolina is more than happy to sell.
They're like, we got it. We can hook you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that Prince guy, he kept the snakes in his bait shop in Canton.
Yeah.
That was part of why he was being arrested. It was less so about the religious side.
Yeah, and about like having dangerous snakes
Yeah,
around.
and more about being in possession of these poisonous snakes and then having them, of course, out and about in the revival.
Yeah, and then there's kids that could get bit, and they don't really have a say. So, I mean.
So the sheriff got bit and had to go to the ICU.
Yeah.
He survived, though.
Well, luckily.
Yeah.
He survived.
Yeah.
Wow. That snake handling guy down the road reminds me of this interview we both saw with Pentecostal pastor named Chris Wolford on the Soft White Underbelly YouTube channel, which is an excellent YouTube channel. It was created by a guy named Mark Leda, who's a photographer. He was very successful. He got a career in photography. He worked for BMW. And
he was what they call like a photojournalist. He's not just a photographer, but he was actually out
Oh yeah, telling
working.
stories. Yeah, he worked National Geographic, bunch of major companies, a lot of money, real rich guy. And then he started to kind of realize that there was he heard the quote from Winston Churchill about the soft white underbelly of England during World War I being the most vulnerable spot to the country, and he started to think about what was the most vulnerable spot for America. And he was in LA being a photojournalist, and he realized that Skid Row was right there, and that was our America's soft white underbelly. And so he came up with a photo project that he did where he took portraits of people there on Skid Row, and really professional portraits, and put them up as displays. That started around 2016. And then around 2018, he started a YouTube channel where he interviews these people that he was taking portraits of and allows them to talk and tell their stories. It's very fascinating. He started with Skid Row, but then he sort of moved.
When COVID hit, he left the West Coast and headed east and went from interviewing Skid Row residents to interviewing people who live in Appalachia.
Yeah, some really interesting people. Among some of the people he's interviewed, just to give you an idea, drug addicts, homeless people, pimps, prostitutes, tricks, gang members, Ku Klux Klan members, inbred mountain hillbillies, even moonshiners. I mean, he interviews the fringe people, and he's very respectful to people. He helps a lot of people. He's started GoFundMes, and he doesn't...
Well, what happened was people started watching these videos and felt compelled by a lot of the stories
to help,
that they wanted to help. And so he was like, okay, well, let's figure out how to do this. You can tell he's kind of learning as he goes when it comes to that side of things.
But he just wants to help. His intent seems very much just to help people.
Yeah. So one of the interviews that he did more recently was with a Pentecostal preacher in West Virginia.
Chris Wolford. He is a preacher at the House of the Lord Jesus Christ in Squire, West Virginia. The interviews with him is fascinating. I mean, it is utterly fascinating. He really tries to logic his way around a lot of it. He will say things like, if I wrote the book, it wouldn't have that part about handling snakes in it, but God did, and my job is to be obedient.
Well, and his job, he believed, was to interpret the word of God, and in this case, a literal interpretation, which means taking up serpents.
But it's completely fine for him to say that from his point of view, it doesn't make any sense, which is a really strange circle that he's managed to, or square that he's managed to circle, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I figure it's how he explains it away to himself.
Yeah. I was just like, my opinion is that this is weird as hell, but God knows more.
Yeah, he's like, what am I going to do? I got to hold the snake.
Yeah, and so one of the interesting things he talked about was that he gives people the option of going to the hospital when they get bit. So like, he's like, I don't want to judge you if you want to go to the hospital. But then again, most of them don't.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, that a lot of the snake handling pastors and congregation will say, which is, A, they don't expect you to handle snakes if you don't want to. And B, if you do and you wind up getting bit, they don't think less of you if you wind up going to the hospital.
Right.
But
I think they kind of do.
They do to an extent, because there's a lot of social pressure in these congregations. So if you are trying to prove something, that you have the spirit within you and you're protected, you can't
then turn and go to the hospital.
Yeah, then you're admitting that you were lying.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's like a social peer pressure kind of.
Yeah, I think that it's dangerous, actually.
Of course it's dangerous. People have died.
Yeah. And even his family, which I find it really fascinating, like he saw his family die to it, but he also claims that Jesus had cured him of hepatitis C because he was a drug addict addicted to cocaine. He started shooting cocaine, which is ridiculous, and gave his heart to Jesus, and he says Jesus cured his hep C, which, okay.
I wonder if he's in the group of the charismatics, like that's a miracle.
Maybe.
Or something.
Yeah, I don't know. He said his dad was possessed by Satan one time and Jesus cured him of that. So, that's convenient. When he was asked about women, I found he had the same basic argument. He said, this is a quote, "They ought to do what they want, but that's not the word. So I preach that they wear veils and keep hair long. But they ought to do what they want."
Yeah, he's saying women should be able to do what they want to do and should be able to be pastors.
But God says no.
But
hands are tied.
The book says, so therefore I can't let them do that.
Yeah. That is some weird logic to me. I don't get how you how you rationalize that, but
that's how he does it.
Yeah, that's admitting, you're saying like, I think that what is happening is immoral, but somebody else says that it is moral, so then it must be.
Right, and they practice it as the moral law of God. It's not just a belief, it's the law of God.
So he's got a weird take on it. It's a very strange interview. The guy's very happy by the end of it, though, because he got to say his piece. And
he wasn't judged, which is part of why we enjoy that channel so much, is the photojournalist guy, doesn't come in with preconceived notions or judgments. He lets people just sit down and talk and tell their stories.
I think that's very powerful, because I think that it's something that we're missing in the world, and that's why the channel's grown a lot. And you can see it. I mean, I started watching it maybe close to a year ago, and
it's about a year and a half ago.
It has blown up since when I started watching it. It is now, I mean, I would say he's got hundreds of videos up, and some of them are an hour long. I mean, there's a lot of content.
Some of them are like 5 or 6 minute interviews, and others are 45 minutes to an hour.
It depends on what the person has to say. It's very interesting. I think that's why I like it, is that the people have a lot of control. Even somebody like this, who I think a lot of people wouldn't give the time of day. Let him say his piece. Even if you disagree, which I vehemently do, he said his piece.
And it was informative.
Crazy. Yeah.
You learned from listening to him.
I can certainly understand how he's thinking. I can't think that way, but I can understand it.
Right.
So I think it's important.
Soft, wide underbelly. Check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, check it out. It's a great channel. I think everyone could pretty much agree, along with the title of our episode, that this all takes place in what's known as the Bible Belt.
Right.
That's a term that's pretty much the region of the southern United States, which socially conservative, evangelical Protestantism plays a strong role in society and politics. And church attendance across denominations is generally higher than the nation's average in the Bible Belt. That's where the name comes from. The region contrasts with the religiously diverse Midwest, the Mormon corridor, and the Utah and southern Idaho. So that's like kind of where the line is. So the main states that we're really talking about here are Georgia, specifically northern Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, southern and western Virginia, West Virginia, South Carolina, and a little bit of East Texas.
Yeah, like right that little tip end of it.
That's what we're going to be calling, that's the area we're referring to as the Bible Belt. But there's been some I find interesting debate on where the buckle of the Bible Belt would be constituted.
Because doesn't everybody want to be the buckle?
Everybody does want to be the buckle. And here's a couple of cities that have a pretty decent claim to it. Abilene, Texas is a city of about 117,000 people. It's not a very big city at all, but it has 3 Protestant universities. And that's pretty crazy for a town of 117,000 people.
Yeah.
3 major universities that are all Christian. Nashville, Tennessee, another city sometimes referred to as the Protestant Vatican, has over 700 churches.
Wow.
Yeah, so Nashville, Tennessee, there's a good argument for that one. Tulsa, Oklahoma is a city where tons of religious colleges are, and where tons of religious people have come from. I mean, you're talking about people like the Gideon's Association and the Free Will Bible Baptist College, American Baptist College.
Yeah.
What's his name? That Kenneth E. Hagin, Joel Osteen, all these people kind of originated in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I find interesting because some of them have moved from Tulsa since then.
Like Joel Osteen's in Texas now. But
they have 2 major TV stations that are religious and 3 major radio stations. 4 major religious radio stations. So Tulsa's got it happening.
They're in with the Lord.
And then the last nominee on this list is Greenville, South Carolina.
Yay, Carolina.
Yeah, it's a city where there are a lot of independent Baptist churches, and there are well over 100 Baptist churches in Greenville, South Carolina, which is crazy because that's not that big of a city either.
No, it's not very big.
It's bigger than 117,000, but not that much.
And that's just the Baptist churches.
Right, and it also is the home of Bob Jones University, which is one of the most religiously conservative colleges in the country. It also is the home of WTBI, a radio station which plays old-fashioned Christian music and preaching 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Let's be sure to tune in.
Yeah, so be sure to tune in to that. And those are the main arguments that at least I found for buckle of the Bible Belt. But I know growing up, I always considered it to be where I was, because that's sure as hell what it felt like.
I think when you live in the Bible Belt, you feel like
you're in the buckle.
You are in the buckle.
Yeah.
So that maybe explains why everyone thinks they're the buckle.
And when I was 13-year-old me in that church, I felt like I was right in the buckle.
You were like, well, this is it. Yeah. I'm in it.
Yeah. So why were we talking about all this today? I think one of the reasons is because tradition is important, and that distinguishing it from the customs that can be harmful is important.
Right. And part of also why we chose to talk about this is because the acts of snake handling and drinking strychnine is fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Especially when it's done in a group setting for religious purposes.
Our point is that maybe we could move on and get rid of these harmful practices, but still keep traditions intact and not threaten to destroy people's heritage, because that's not what I want. I don't think that's what you want either.
No.
I don't think any progressive liberals want to destroy someone's heritage and history. We just want to update practices that are maybe harmful.
Right.
And
make them less harmful or harmless.
And to consider a way to do that without destroying tradition, because I don't think that they're tied together. And I think another way of thinking about it is my man George Carlin had an excellent quote where he said, if you see two different groups of people and they're killing each other, chances are they're wearing different kind of hats. You should keep an eye on that. And I think what he meant by that is we have different hats that we put on in the world when we look at things. When we're talking about a legal case, we put on our legal hat. Right. When we're talking about religion, we put on a religion hat. We're talking about math, we put on our logic hat. And I think when you put your religion hat on, you forget about potential harm sometimes.
Well, what happens is a lot of religion hats also come with built-in blinders, and those pop down and cover your eyes so that you don't see what's really happening.
Right, and I think that the religion hat needs to be able to work with our legal hat and our logic hat that we wear, because if we don't and we're wearing different kind of hats, as Carlin says, we will end up killing each other.
In a blind defense, yes.
And I think that's why we wanted to talk about this, and that's the point that we wanted to make. But that's us being serious, and that's boring. So enough of that. Let's move on to something a little bit more entertaining.
Sounds good to me.
I think we both have some 1-star reviews for this week.
So I have a 1-star review that ties in great with this episode.
All right, this is Amanda's first 1-star review.
I know, I'm really excited about this.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's hear it.
This is for a King James Version Holy Bible standard print.
Nice.
With burgundy faux leather cover.
Okay.
$14.99.
That's a pretty good deal on a Bible. That's a big-ass book.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. So this reviewer left a 1-star review for this particular Bible.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Reviewer's name's Kelly Christie, and she says, halfway through the book, but no Jesus? She says, I've heard a lot of good things about this book, and it was highly recommended to me by my grandma, but I'm having trouble following the plot. There's so many characters, I have a hard time following along. Is each book named after the main character of that story arc?
No.
I'm not feeling that so far.
No.
Is there another way to save my soul without finishing this book? I saw a bumper sticker that said Jesus saves and got worried that I need saving. So I need to know. To be honest, I have had things spoiled for me already. Thanks a lot, internet. Yeah. So I know that at some point Jesus shows up.
Yeah.
And I've heard that's when it gets really good. But I'm over halfway through the book and still no Jesus. Just a lot of rules about shellfish and lying with men, whatever that means. I need my soul to be saved now and don't have time to read 200 or more pages. None of these characters I find that compelling except Lucifer. He seems like a badass. Sorry for my cuss, Lord. Anyway, big disappointment. No disrespect to the author King James. What's he the king of again? Maybe there's a movie adaptation. I'd watch that if it was on TV, or maybe a matinee. Still, as far as fantasy fiction goes, I prefer Lord of the Rings. Tolkien rocks. Well, I'm off to read the Quran now. Hopefully that one holds up to the hype. Bless.
That's an excellent 1-star review.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's satirical, but it made me laugh.
That's pretty hilarious. I laughed during that whole thing. That's pretty good. Well, I have a 1-star review here for an Antrain 47-inch extended heavy-duty snake tongs, a reptile-grabbing handler tool. Yes, if you were to maybe want to handle some snakes, this is a tool for that.
You're going to need some snake tongs.
It is $39.99, and somebody named Swashbuckling Piddler says this product is idiotic and gives it 1 star. This product is idiotic, and I was very upset that my husband, who has a traumatic brain injury and shouldn't be making purchasing decisions, but slipped stuff by me here and there, purchased this thing and spent so much money on a grab pole. I mean, really, there's a lot of money just because you say it picks up snakes. And I think the point is that I looked it up. There's a grab pole you can get for like $8.
Yeah, we have one. I use it to change our bird feeder outside on the window.
Better reviews. And I think her traumatic brain injured husband was just like, hell yeah, this picks up snakes.
I'm going to grab snakes and all kinds of stuff.
And drop $40, and she was upset about that.
Yeah, I would be too, especially if they're not handling snakes.
This, I have 2 reviews for this next product. This is a 2-pack of Trump 2020 flags. 3 foot by 5 foot Trump 2020 flags. So,
and it's 1 star.
Yeah. They have 1 star. So someone named Jason Alexander reviewed it and said, "Yeehaw! Great gift. My hillbilly friend who has no teeth loves these flags. These will be a great gift from when he recovers from COVID-19. I think he got it while protesting. Anyways, I'm glad China was able to produce these beautiful flags. And I'm sorry that Obama killed our jobs. And we should stand for these flags because the government said so."
That's a good review.
That is a great review. And then Dylan S. reviewed the same flags and said, they're garbage. Garbage flag. The one for Biden and Harris are much more durable.
These are way more durable than those Trump 2020 flags. Wink,
I thought
wink.
that was very subtly funny.
Absolutely.
And then my last 1-star review I have today is for the album Girls, Girls, Girls.
Oh.
By Motley Crue.
Oh, nice.
If you wanted to buy a CD, it's the actual CD. It's $13.99. You can get that off of Amazon. But this guy says, money, 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 ? Money brings you the girls. I think that's what the CD is all about. The only trouble is that the money that they want is in our possession as the rock fans, and I won't give it to these scumbags. I listened to this album from a friend of mine who said it was phenomenal, and I almost phoned the sanitarium at that very moment.
Oh.
So I imagine this dude is not from the United States, because who calls it a sanitarium?
Well, yeah. And also, who talks that way about Motley Crue?
He does bring up a good point. That album is all about money, but it's the money that they're talking about is the money that's in your pocket that they want you to give to them.
Right.
Maybe Girls, Girls, Girls needs a second look.
It's money, money, money.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that does it for this week's 1-star reviews, and that does it for this week's episode of the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast. If you like what you heard, which I'm sure you did, or else you'll get bit by a poisonous snake.
Yeah. I hope you like what you heard, or you'll get bitten by a poisonous snake.
Right, and you will find us on the internet at our website,
carolinasnowflakes.com.
You will also, I'm like hypnotizing you, you will also go to our website.
You will go to our website.
To our Facebook that is at facebook.com.
Facebook.com/Carolina Snowflakes.
Right. And then we have an email, and that's where you can email us if your fingers aren't rigor mortised up from drinking strychnine or bitten to smithereens by snakes.
carolinasnowflakes@gmail.com.
gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. Bye.